Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and depending on where you are, and welcome to Chattering with Nicholas Vince. And this week I'm chattering with Dan Palmer. Good evening, Dan.
Hi, NBV. How you doing?
I love the fact that you call me NBV.
That's what I'm doing for you. I won't say what you call me because
DP.
yeah, yeah, exactly. That's why I didn't say it.
Because of course because I used to be NJV, I'm now NJBV. Which just makes it really confusing.
Turning into a funny sketch. Let's get out of it.
So just before, as I mentioned, just before we start the show proper and I start talking with Dan about his stuff, I want to give a quick shout out to everyone who I met at Bloody Weekend in Audincourt in France last weekend. Had the most amazing time. Literally, it's 4 days with the likes of Fabio Frizzi, Jack Shoulder, who directed Nightmare on Elm Street 2, John McNaughton, who directed Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, Catriona McCull, Fabio Frizzi, I'm sure I've mentioned already, Graham Masterton, the author, Alan Schluckhoff, and there's somebody else whose name entirely escapes me at the moment, but my fellow judges were all amazing. And we saw some wonderful films. It amazed me particularly because these were mostly French films that we saw. There was actually nothing from England or the UK, or even, don't think there was even anything from the USA. Although it was international, it was open to everybody. And apparently we saw 22 films out of 520 applications.
Wow.
But it was quite extraordinary. The standard was incredibly high. And the film that we won, which was it was a majority verdict on the jury. There were a couple of dissenting voices, but it was a majority verdict out of 8 of us, is a thing called Quenotte, which is a French film about, I had no idea about this, but they don't have a tooth fairy, they have a tooth mouse.
Sure. They're not winding you up here.
No, apparently not, because it said so on the screen at the beginning.
So this is like the next Krampus, then. This is...
I have to say, it was one of the scariest things, and I had to sit through it twice. It's only 15 minutes through, and I have a thing about teeth anyway, and it was just terrifying.
You have a thing about teeth?
Yeah.
The toothiest monster in horror since Bruce the Shark.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I have a thing about teeth, and I'm probably told.
Like, sorry to sort of jump in. Does the mouse bring put the penny under the pillow, or?
I think because there was no mention of any money being exchanged, but it was definitely taking the teeth. And if you have a chance to see it,
okay,
it was just terrifying. It was just really, really. It's spelt Quennottes, Quenotte, and just extraordinary. But and some others, other really good winners in there. Some beautiful animations as well. A lot of animations. Animated films is probably a better expression, are just amazing, absolutely extraordinary. But so anyway, just a thumbs up to Loic and Aurélie, who organised it, and everybody there, and all our translators and so on. We were looked after extraordinarily well, including French chef just for the jury. He really, really looked after us very, very well. And I came back half a stone heavier. But so thank you for that. Now, but before we dive into the actual interview itself, you have got your film Stalled is broadcasting when on the UK Horror Channel?
Yeah, we've got our TV premiere on Friday the 10th, which I believe is next Friday, 10:50, I think, on the Horror Channel.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you haven't seen Stalled yet, if you've managed to miss it at the festivals and Blu-ray and DVD and streaming and Pirate Bay, then you've got no excuse. It's on TV on this Friday coming. So yeah, check it out. TV premiere, very exciting. Yay!
Yay! Yeah, that's brilliant. Congratulations on that. And it is still available on YouTube, on iTunes. Not YouTube, iTunes.
Well, I think it probably is available on YouTube, but let's not talk about that.
Yeah.
Um,
Really?
yeah, thanks for plugging the illegal torrents there. Yeah, it's still available everywhere, hopefully, and it's still doing well on Blu-ray and DVD. If you're old-fashioned and you like the physical formats, and if you're clinging on to dear life to physical formats, you can still get a disc. So yeah, still available. Yeah, TV next Friday.
Okay, cool, brilliant. Congratulations. Are you doing anything special to celebrate it? Are you having a few mates in to have a drink, or all your mates will have seen it, I presume?
Yeah, most of my mates worked on it and are sick of it, so we'll probably be watching the other side. No. We'll probably have a little party. We'll probably watch the first 10 minutes, see what. I'm interested. This is really nerdy. This is kind of a weird nerdy filmmaker thing, but I've had Small Town Folk, a film I was in, which is made by the guys who run the studio here, Treehouse. That was on the Horror Channel, and it's always interesting to see where they put the ad breaks. When you've been in a movie, I mean, you must get it with Hellraiser and stuff. It's always interesting where they put the ad breaks. I mean, that's why I'm interested. Like, Custord's quite, bam, 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 and quite a short film. So I'm interested to see where they're going to put the ads for, meerkats. Where the meerkats are going to pop up.
Yeah. It's very interesting because I don't think Hellraiser has been on terrestrial channel. I don't think I've ever seen it on a commercial channel. I've seen it on, it was put on, they did the first 3 films, I think, on BBC Two a couple of decades ago, at Christmas, because it's of an obvious choice for Christmas.
Yeah.
And I don't think I've ever seen Hellraiser with commercial breaks.
Okay.
That would be very
terrible. I mean, sometimes there's some really unfortunate sort of synergy. I remember the girl with the dragon tattoo had. I don't know. Did you hear about this? There was I can't remember who the sponsor was. I think it might have been Stella Artois or something. It was like each one was like they were shooting in a scene on the movie. Right, getting into this now. There was the rape scene in Dragon Tattoo. And then it cut to the advert, and the sponsor was the girl being, in bed, and she turns to the camera and says, "I was faking all along." But she was exactly in the same position as. So, yeah, he did it. I was faking all along.
It's.
And if you've seen that scene, she wasn't faking.
No, and it. Yeah, no, I'd not heard about that one before.
Surely, your commercial placement nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, you think somebody would be checking these things?
Yeah, so I'm wondering if there'd be like toilet duck adverts during Stalled. I don't know. Tampon adverts.
Yeah, I think that would be quite extraordinary. But I'm guessing that now. I mean, it used to be, of course, that you only had a couple of commercial channels, and somebody could actually sit down and work out what the program. Because I remember. In the good old days, back in the 1980s, etc., they were actually really careful as to whether or not a cast member appeared in an advert.
Yeah.
To make sure the Daniel Craig during James Bond didn't actually appear.
I remember it was really odd. Your old mucker Doug Bradley was in, I think it's an insurance advert, so like 10 years ago, and his face was on these posters everywhere. If you're a horror fan, it was really odd because it was like, I'm Pinhead.
I remember him talking about this. Yes, it was
Pinhead.
Yeah, and driving, on the buses all the way around London.
Like Robert England, Mothercare. It's very strange.
Yeah. No, it's one thing I had actually not thought about when you go on a commercial channel as to whether all the breaks come in and so on.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to watch it now on Friday again just to see where the commercial breaks come in. Yeah. And see if Toilet Duck is there. Okay, so let's wind back now. We'll talk more about Stalled later on. But you went to Bournemouth Film School, is that right? Is that where you started out?
Yeah, I well, to go back even further, I was born at a very early age. When I was at school, because I'm from Bournemouth anyway, but when I was at school, a crew from Bournemouth Film School came to our school to shoot a short film. And I had an interest in film as a kid, but I never really knew it was something you could do. You know, I didn't have anyone in the family that was sort of, you know, did film stuff or anything. And this crew came to our school, and our school was pre-war, and the short film was about some kids that travel through time and like go to an old school and see what school was like in wartime. It was like an educational thing. Well, that's what they said. I found out what they told the school that it was going to be on school's TV. It's going to be like on educational television. But I found out retroactively that it was actually, they were just bullshitting. And since then I've learned, you know, that's one of the main talents of being a filmmaker is bullshitting. And but they came to our school and basically took over the entire place. And there was tracks all in the corridors. Some lessons they had to be combined because they're using classrooms as like the dressing room and makeup and all this. So basically, for like, you know, a couple of weeks, I saw my school taken over by this film crew, and it was just a real eye opener. And plus, I auditioned for the lead role and didn't get it. I got a little small role, and my best friend got the lead role. So and I was always doing lines with him, and so we got out of maths, we got out of science, you know, and. Like I say, they told the school that it's for educational purposes, but it wasn't just making this short film. But the director of that was Joe Cornish,
right?
Who went on to, you know, Adam and Joe, and went on to do Attack the Block. And he kind of like was really cool. You know, he was like this older guy, this older kid, and we thought he was really cool. And like, you know, the first time I ever saw Aliens was we bunked off of maths to go and do some work on the film. But we actually went to Joe's student house and watched Aliens. So I was like this 12-year-old kid shitting myself, you know, eating old takeaway, watching Aliens, whilst all the other kids were doing, you know, algebra. So I was thinking, this is something I want to do, you know. And it was amazing. Also, like I remember I was getting changed in the changing room, in the dressing room, and there was the lead actress who was she looked a bit like Miranda Richardson kind of type, and she was like the headmistress. Obviously, she was an actress, but I'd never sort of met an actress before. And she was just talking to me, 12-year-old me, and she was taking her clothes off. Like, I know, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, what? But with hindsight, her underwear was very exotic. She was wearing like a basque, and you know, I haven't really sort of like recreated this in my mind. It was, anyway. So there was all these weird things going on, but it was a great time. And I thought, this is something I'd like to do. And Joe, it was really fun watching Joe do his stuff. And then I found out the college was the local one. So when a couple of years later, when it came to sort of go on to higher education, I sort of like, you know, applied to Bournemouth and Paul College of Art and Design, which I think still is one of the kind of top film schools. And I applied to that and got in. And I was the youngest. It was actually for people in their sort of early 20s at the time, and I was 16. So I was the youngest in the course. And that's why I met Christian James. So I went on to direct Freak Out and Stalled With. And then the year above me was Edgar Wright, who was a good Shaun the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. So, okay, so you were 16 when you went to film school, and on average, was everybody else like 3 or 4 years older than you?
Yeah, like a 21-year-old girl, you know, took my virginity. It was like we were all like, I was like, Christian didn't take my virginity, but Christian was about 16, 17, a little bit older than me. But me and Christian were like the two young ones, and we were like thrust. It doesn't sound like much, 16 or 12, but when you're that age, there's a big difference. And
huge difference, yeah.
And we were, Christian and I were like seen as like the kind of annoying little gits, because we were like, you know, we were the two youngest, and like after us, everyone was pretty much in their early 20s. But I think that's why we kind of bonded, and we had similar sensibilities. We both like the same kind of movies, both like kind of Joe Dante and sort of more commercial stuff than compared to a lot of the people there, you know. And Edgar Wright, I got to know Edgar quite well because he was in the year above me, and it was before the horror renaissance, and he was really the only other person there that listened to horror movies. And I can remember going to college worried because I was wearing a Leatherface t-shirt. Oh God, like, you know, because people, you know, were a little bit more highfalutin than that. And one of my tutors said, "Oh, there's a guy in the year above you that you might get on with," and it was Edgar, and he was doing his sort of thesis, like a final kind of project, which it was all the pages were dyed in blood, and he'd done his sort of final essay or whatever on gore movies and sort of whole stuff about Reanimator and stuff. I was like, wow, you can write about Reanimator. So he was a bit of an influence, and he was already making this movie. He made Dead Right, which was like it's kind of video kind of cop movie, which I think is on the Hot Fuzz DVD. But then he was making his sort of proper theatrical movie on film, 60mm, and it was Fistful of Fingers, his Western spoof. And I just followed him around like a bad smell until he gave me like a small part. I'm in it for like 3 seconds. It's like I'm an extra in it. Yeah, I'm a shemp,
Oh, now, do you remember we talked earlier that we might be getting a bit of feedback? Are you getting feedback at your end?
No, I have no feedback here.
Oh, okay, that's fine. Well, all right. So it's okay. That's fine. It's just sorted itself out. That's fine. All right. So we've just got a question come in from a lady called Kim Lehman. Hi, Kim. Thank you for joining us again.
Hi, Kim.
Dan, myself being a fan of horror comedies, what is your favorite horror comedy? Mine is Evil Dead 2. So do you have a favorite horror comedy?
It's stalled. It's on a 10 to 11. That's a very good question and a very tough question. People say it's hard to get horror comedy right, but there's so many horror comedies that I like. I don't know if that's actually a true statement. Obviously, American Werewolf is kind of like the granddaddy in London, not Paris. Is the granddaddy of sort of comedy horror, I'd say. But then you can also go back to sort of if you want Abbott and Costello, all that. But and does Ghostbusters count? But I'd say American Werewolf is up there. Fright Night is one of my favorite films, full stop. Not just comedy horror, but I think Fright Night is just a perfect film. So yeah, Fright Night, American Werewolf, Monster Squad. I do love Monster Squad.
I've still not seen Monster Squad.
You haven't seen the Monster Squad?
I've never seen Monster Squad.
You might not be the right demographic now, but
I think it passed me by because
yeah.
But
it's, as a kid, it just blew my mind. It's just a fantastic film. It's just I watch it every couple of times a year, but it's just Fred Dekker really is a underrated talent. It's great to see he's coming back. He's written The Predator with Shane Black, so that's going to be interesting. But the Monster Squad's a fantastic film, really good film.
And I should just give a quick shout out to Dead Mouse Productions and their Fright Night documentary, which must be coming out fairly soon.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. I noticed that I'm not. It's so difficult with Facebook.
One? Are they doing a RoboCop?
They are doing a RoboCop one. That is the next project. Yeah, but I don't think they've released the Fright Night one yet.
No, I don't think they have.
I mean, I know I'm on the DVD extras, and they've not done a. Simon Bamford. Simon Bamford is just brilliant as Peter Vincent, or Roddy McDowall as Peter Vincent. He's absolutely uncanny. Okay, so Fright Night. Okay, cool. So Fistful of Dollars.
Fingers.
I'm
not that
old. Fistful of Fingers, and then Freak Out. So you've already mentioned Christian James, your mate Christian James. So how did Freak Out come about?
Well, it's basically from seeing Edgar do Fistful of Fingers. He it had a bit of a little tiny renaissance a while back. So it was the anniversary, and then it was screened at Prince Charles and I think the ArcLight. But seeing Edgar do that, because at the time at film school, you could have graduated and you end up being like a runner on the bill. For kids out there, it was a cop show. It was really boring. You kind of just went off and you were a run on the bill or a Bond film or whatever. And me and Christian, being arrogant, didn't really fancy that. And we wanted a team made for us. No, so we saw Edgar do what Edgar did. So we thought, we'll try that. Unfortunately, we're not as talented or smart as Edgar. It took us 5 years. So Edgar shot because the thing was on 16 and we shot Freak Out on 16 because this was really before the kind of quantum leap of, you know, digital technology, you know. And so we just went about trying to raise money. Upon leaving college, we just went around sort of like trying to raise money, and we raised enough to get an ARRI Flex BL 60mm camera, which Christian's still got somewhere. So if anyone wants to buy a second-hand 60mm camera, call us. But yeah, and, we got this old 60mm camera from a BBC news cameraman. And, you know, back in the day when you'd actually film the news on film, you know, you'd film the sort of poll tax riots, run back, develop the film and try and get it ready for, you know, the 6 o'clock news. So we got this camera, which was, we were using this camera to film this schlocky slasher spoof that had, you know, been used to shoot, you know, I don't know, the Myra Hindley trial or whatever, you know. So yeah, we had this whole camera, and then we basically would go. It's nuts now to think about it. Sort of in sort of like in the modern climate of filmmaking, you know, where you can shoot stuff on your phone. But we would go to London. We were both from Bournemouth, so we'd jump on the train and go to London with empty backpacks, and we'd go to all the finishing houses and commercial companies and get offcuts of 60mm film in cans, old cans, fill up our backpacks with cans. And then go back with all the film cans and just try and shoot this movie with, like, you know, we've got 5 minutes of Fuji, we've got 10 minutes of Kodak, you know, and just sort of put together all this, you know, all these offcuts of film that we'd nabbed from all these companies. It's funny because you get the cans that would say like Spice Girls Pepsi promo, or, you know, Madonna video written on them, crossed out, you know. And sometimes when we get the film back, we'd have some sort of scenes of me. At the end, there'd be like suddenly Harry Hill, and we'd got some film from Harry Hill's Fruit Fancies, that bizarre BBC Two show he did before he was famous. We'd get all these little offcuts of things that they'd already, the film that's already exposed. So yeah, and we just shot that on film, and that's why it took so long, because we were just doing it by piecemeal, kind of like how Peter Jackson did, you know, Bad Taste, or weekends and between jobs and that kind of thing.
So it must have cost a fortune in developing, or did you do your own developing?
We raised, I think in the end it cost 25 grand, the whole film. And we'd send it off to different places, and we always try and find, we sent it to New York because at one point it was cheaper to send to New York and have it posted back than it was to send to London. So we'd always try and find the cheapest place. It's very, like I say, it's after shooting stuff on, the way the kids do it now, you know, it seems bizarre talking about it. It seems like almost like a different age. Well, it was a different age, but it's so odd to think about now. But in retrospect, but yeah, it's kind of strange because you'd shoot a scene, you think, hope that turned out all right, you know. And you shoot a scene in January, send it off in March, you know, get it back, you know, August. Go, oh, didn't come out. Let's do it again. You know.
This is extraordinary. So, what year was this? When were you?
Well, it was what 6 years was. It was. There's a scene in Freak Out, because I'm the people that haven't seen it, which is everybody. The film is basically two kids discover an escaped mental patient, and one of the kids is a big horror geek. So instead of calling the police, or he actually keeps him, like Elliot keeps E.T., and trains the escaped mental patient to be a Jason or a Freddy or Michael Myers, you know. So it's kind of like weird science, but instead of a sexy Kelly LeBrock, there's a wacko in a hockey mask. But unfortunately for the horror fan, the escaped mental patient turns out he's quite effeminate, and he's a vegetarian, and he's like the sight of blood. So, but my character's the kind of like like the Corey Feldman best buddy, you know, like the Robert Downey Jr. in Back to School, or you know, that kind of the wacky Hawaiian shirt best buddy. You know, It doesn't really work in English films. You know, I play that character, but that's the main conceit of the film. But yeah, there's just just as a kind of example how long it took to film. There's a scene in the movie where I'm sitting in a car looking out of a window at something, and I'm looking 3 years to the future. I'm in like 1999, and the thing I'm looking at is in like 2003. older. You know, there's scenes when I'm like, you know, I look like a twink, and the next day, there's next 2 scenes I'm like haggard. My hair goes up and down. But we have a drinking game. But yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. It came out. Anchor Bay released it.
Because I was reading your notes and you were saying you actually got distribution for this.
Yeah. What the fuck? It was just basically like getting your school homework released. It was bizarre. It was but we worked really hard on it. I mean, I'm actually sort of like doing us a disservice because it's that whole thing as naivety is kind of sometimes the best driving force, you know. And we didn't know what we were doing. I think that's probably best because we probably would know. Now we allow things to get in the way. Now me and Christian are old and jaded, kind of like, oh, maybe we shouldn't do this because of X, Y, and Z. Back then we go, let's do it, you know. And I think that's the thing to sort of like. If the few times people ask me for advice, you know, young people, and girl people, that, you know, I kind of just say, just don't let your doubts get in the way, you know. But it's good to have a bit of self-depreciation. I think there's too many people role-playing nowadays who think they're Alfred Hitchcock or Alfreda Hitchcock, and you know. But it's good to have a little bit of self-depreciation, a bit of, sort of self-knowing. But it's also good just to sort of like, you know, just don't let those doubts get in the way. And that's how Free Catch has propelled itself. It's just we didn't know any better, you know. But yeah, we managed to. We ended up with a movie by the end of it, and we took it to Cannes, and didn't meet anyone in Cannes, as is the way. But we met someone who said, "You know who you need to meet," and they put us on to Martin Myers, who was he's a sort of a mover and a shaker, and his dad was. And it's funny, he took the film to Anchor Bay, and Anchor Bay bought it. The funny thing is, Martin was Michael Myers' son. I'm not going bonkers. I don't mean
no.
Michael Myers was a big distribution guy, and he released Assault on Precinct 13 in the UK.
Right.
And Carpenter was so happy with what he did, he named the killer in Halloween after him. So basically, the guy who kind of like was responsible for getting our film out there was the son of Michael Myers, which is kind of cool because the film was all about, you know, training up this wannabe, you know, movie maniac, you know. So yeah, and a lovely guy called Mo Claridge used to run Anchor Bay. He was just basically, he was kind of like the William Castle of home video. He did the configuration box, the Hellraiser configuration box. That was his, you know, the collected. I think you got 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
The Phantasm Ball with all the Phantasm movies in it. He was the first person to get all the Halloweens together in a box set. And he was a great guy. And so he got up and running and gave us a 2-disc set, and it's crazy to think about it now. And we had a 2-disc, gave us a wedge of money to go off and film extras, you know, special features, you know, which is obviously a dying art now. And we were going to make our next film, Anchor Bay, and then unfortunately the next Christmas Mo dropped dead. So we were showing because he's a smashing fella and loved what he did. But you know, we're always being indebted to him because he, you know, he got the film out there and really. He said to us, "I don't understand the film, but I think kids will." You know, so yeah.
So just to keep on this for a few minutes, I'm fascinated by the idea of film. So literally, you had to splice and tape together. And who did the editing of it? Who actually?
Christian. You should get Christian on here because he knows what he's talking about. I just pretend. But we didn't actually do any physical splicing. We shot on 16mm and sent it off and got it developed. But then we got beta. I'm doing all right. Beta SP tapes, I think, and then we cut on beta.
Right.
We actually cut. It's still quite archaic. But we would, but then he would put that into Avid or whatever, and you know. So we never actually cut film. But Christian would be on set, or like say we'd be filming in the middle of the woods. Christian would have his hands in like with a film changing bag, which is basically the sort of Ziploc black bag with 2 zips on it to make sure no lights. You know, changing the film, trying to sort of feed it into the gate of the the camera, and it's crazy. It's crazy to think about it now, but we pulled it off.
I haven't had a chance to watch it yet, but I want to go out and watch it now because it just.
It's probably on. It's probably on eBay for 99p. You know.
It's still available on Amazon. It's
okay.
Today. No, you can still buy the. You can even buy. I think. I'm not sure. I'll have to double check, but I think on Amazon.co.uk you can buy the 2-disc set.
Right. Yeah, there's only, I think there was only the 2 discs there. I don't think you could get it for it was an HMV for ages for 16 quid. What the it's got its fans. Like, there was a guy that went. There's a character, the villain in it is the Looney, and he's like a lisping kind of effeminate villain. I got some photos sent to me a couple of months ago of a guy at a convention dressed up as the Looney. So, and I get people that email me that say like they decided that they wanted to make films because of Freak Out. Like, why? Okay, right. You are. Thanks, Mum.
Okay, all right. Well, once we've been talking about that, we've got a couple of interesting questions come in. This is from Darren and Ruby. Oh, interesting question. If you had a time machine, what film set would you like to visit?
Oh, that's a good one. So I don't know if it would actually be a film that the obvious answer would be a film that I love, say like Fright Night or something. But I'm trying to think of one that would be really like Blade 3, because you hear about the stories about what happened on Blade 3, stuff like that, or Tango and Cash, because the stories that I would like to sort of like affirm, in regards to the crazy stuff that happened on set there. But man, I mean, the obvious answer would be Ghostbusters, because that's one of my favorite films. Or Weird Science, because Kelly
Rock, yeah.
That is a good question. But yeah, probably one which God.
And actually, personally, I'd like to go and visit Hellraiser.
You did,
be able to see what was going on.
Yeah,
because I couldn't.
You couldn't remember.
No, and I had Neil Gaiman was on that movie, and I really did, and it was around all the time. And I hardly got to speak. I think it's probably when we did Nightbreed that I got to meet him properly.
Yeah.
Nick, I've been hanging around both. I was like, yeah, you may well have done, but I had no idea.
Would it be bad form if I said the Twilight Zone movie?
No.
No. The Dante section. No. My boring answer would be The Breakfast Club, just to see John Hughes, how he worked with the actors and stuff. That'd be my boring answer.
I think my boring answer would definitely be a Hitchcock movie.
Okay.
Just to see how one has heard all the comments and the documentaries and so on, but actually just to see how he actually worked on.
He's terrorizing.
Yeah, and looking at them through peepholes in the shower and so on.
You could play Hitchcock. You'd be a good Hitchcock. Is that a bad? Is that?
It's not been noted before. David. Normally, I'm likened to David Warner.
I can see that. Yeah.
To David Warner.
Yeah, I heard recently David Warner was going to play Freddy.
I'd not heard that.
Yeah, there's some sort of like stills came out. I think I've got this right. And David Warner literally did have a makeup test for Freddy.
I've not come across that before. Yeah. That would be
not Freddy Krueger, from Jane and Freddy from Rainbows. No. I think that's true. But did you going back to Hellraiser a second? I'm going to interview you for a minute. Did you know Clive? Did you know Clive before?
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. I'll keep this brief because basically I'd met Clive through Simon Bamford, who played Butterball, because Simon and I were in the same year at drama school together.
I was reading this.
Yes.
And Les says, this is my Bible. Les says that he went to college with Clive and Doug and everybody.
No, I didn't.
Oh, but you didn't.
I didn't.
But Les did.
Les went to college with Clive and stuff, and Doug. Yeah, no, he went to college.
I've always got this at hand, by the way. It's not coincidence. It's always.
And for American viewers who have no idea who Les Dennis is, he's a British comedian.
Well, you know him from Extras.
I've never
asked in Extras. So
okay.
He's basically our Louis C.K.
Okay.
Les is basically our Chris Rock.
Yeah, that makes Yeah, no, absolutely. He's a very clever man. But yeah, so I met Clive at a party. I modelled for Clive for the covers of the books of blood, and so on, and a whole load of stuff before he ended up by modeling. And through that, I ended up by modeling for people like Dave McKean and John Bolton and a whole load of people. But yeah, anyway, another question that's come in about Stalled. Because I'm going to move on to Stalled now. We're going to skip all your other movies between Stalled because it's now 25 to 8 and we've got 25.
It's too long.
Yeah, absolutely. Kim Lehman, Dan, now when was Stalled made? When did you write Stalled, actually, come to think of it?
I was quite lucky, in fact, because stuff takes ages and ages and ages, and it's been years since Freak Out, me and Christian's last film. I wrote Stalled the year it was shot, and I'm trying to think when that was. I think it was
2013.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and we basically we'd had another film set up with the producers Dan Pickering and Richard Kerrigan. We had another film, a big monster movie set up, and it was going to be shooting at Pinewood, and we'd done casting and we'd done location scouts. It was cast. Then the credit crunch happened, and it all fell through. So I was doing a temp job, thinking I should be making a Pinewood movie now. It was a little bit, it sort of does knock you for six a little bit. And then I went off and wrote Stalled, which was kind of the antithesis of that movie. It was a very short, very kind of hermetically sealed, compact film, hardly any cast, one location. And I took it back to those guys, and after licking our wounds for a year or two, I brought it back to those guys. And I think within 8 months, we were filming. So most Christmas films aren't shot at Christmas. We did shoot through Christmas. I think it was Christmas 2013. Yeah.
Ah, interesting. And so the question that's come in from Kim again is, did the show Walking Dead play any inspiration, or was it George Romero? Was it, do you have a particular...
I think Walking Dead had... When did Walking Dead start? I don't think I'd seen Walking Dead before we started.
That was why I was asking you when you'd write it, because if you shot it in, so 2013.
I've seen...
Just about starting.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it definitely wasn't the phenomenon it was has become. But I'm not really a massive fan of the sort of modern zombie stuff. Really, my big kind of influence is probably the Return of the Living Dead and Day and Dawn of the Dead. When it comes to zombie stuff, they're they're the zombie movies I always go back to. I think the third Dead movie is a little bit maligned. I actually prefer it to the first two. I think there's a lot going on there, and I think it's very oppressive and obviously very dark. But that's probably my favourite zombie movie. That or Return of the Living Dead, which is just nuts. Actually, I presented. Darren and Ruby just asked a question about what set I'd visit. I think it's them anyway. Darren's a film archivist, and he does a thing called Dirt in the Gate, which is fantastic. And he shows 35mm presentations at Mary Shelley's Theatre in Bournemouth, which is where the Shelley family used to do their shows.
Wow!
He recently just presented Return of the Living Dead, a 35mm presentation of it, and it was beautiful. It was fantastic. Great seeing Lynia's ass in 35mm, but it was They've got The Exorcist coming up next month too. So if anyone's interested in seeing a 35mm print of The Exorcist in Mary Shelley's Theatre, come on down. It's a great evening.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. Well, Chris Wright is also watching, and he says Stalled was shot in 2012.
Oh, was it? Okay. Thanks, Chris. There we go. Chris was in the film, so he would know. So.
Yeah. I thought I recognized that name.
Yeah.
And I was going to say, folks, if anybody was I'm chatting away with Dan, if anybody wants to come and join us live, I haven't actually put the invitation out. Please make a note if there's anyone who'd like to come and join us live. Craig will pass on those names to me. Steve Zaretsky says Stalled is available to rent or buy on iTunes in Canada.
Oh, okay, great, Hoser.
Thank you, Steve. And I've got a question coming from Joe. Joe asks, what horror comedy film or franchise would you like to see made into a musical?
Stalled.
Well, it's already got a dance number.
Yeah, exactly. I actually was asked by somebody was interested in doing a a stage production of Stalled, but I don't own the rights, so I couldn't let it go. Musical. Oh, that's a good one.
Evil Dead's been done.
Night of the Creeps might be quite good. Night of the Comet. That'd be good.
Night of the Comet. I don't know this.
Night of the Comet.
Listen, I'm old, but I haven't watched everything.
Night of the Comet would be good. Yeah. There you go.
I think I've seen this on TV. Remind me. Tell me a little bit about the plot.
Buffy stole a lot from it. It's a cheerleader and her sister, and basically there's a comet, and everyone's gathering around to see like this comet, and then basically wipes out, the human race. But there's a few stragglers left, and
right.
The main character, two very strong female characters actually, and I can't remember the name, but the Catherine Mary Stewart is the lead. She was in The Apple. And she was in Weekend at Bernie's, and she's the main character in it. And it's just two very strong female characters. But yeah, it's a great movie. Jeffrey Lewis is in it. Oh, Clint Eastwood's old mucker. But it's very strange, very 80s kind of like dystopian comedy kind of thing. But yeah, it's great.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
You picture the songs now, Here comes the comet. Here comes the comet.
I remember we talked in Hellraiser. We always wanted to make Hellraiser the opera.
Yeah, I'm surprised they haven't. I'm surprised Dimension haven't done that. Done anything else.
Yeah, can you imagine the music of Christopher Young being used?
Have you heard this? This is nuts. I'm surprised this hasn't been. Back in the day, obviously they'd put like Abbott and Costello with Rex and Wolf, and they'd literally use the guys playing the monsters. Kevin Smith was approached by Harvey Weinstein because he owned. You're going to be one step ahead of me now. He owned obviously Jay and Silent Bob, and he owned the Hellraiser franchise. He met with Kevin Smith and said, "I want to do Jay and Silent Bob meet Pinhead." He wanted to make Jay and Silent Bob meet Pinhead, and Kevin Smith said no. So I didn't have, but that could have happened. Would you have done it if they'd have offered you? If they wanted you to come back, would you have done?
Yes.
Done it?
Yeah, just to meet Kevin Smith, if nothing else. I think that man is a genius. I only
read that recently. I got nuts, absolutely nuts.
That Doug has never mentioned it. I mean, Doug, has talked about the Freddy, Jason, Pinhead.
I'd rather see Jay and Silent Bob beat Pinhead than that. Yeah. Nuts, but yeah, crazy.
That would just be ridiculous. Okay, we'll go back to Stalled. So, what was the budget? You said it was a much smaller budget than.
It was the budget of Stalled was at the end of the day was probably about 45 grand, I think.
Wow.
And for ages on IMDb, someone put 450,000. It was like, yeah. And some review said for 450 grand, this well, guess what? It's not 500,000. You can see, it's my cocaine habit. All the fluffers I got. That was it was like 45 grand. Yeah, I mean, and that wasn't the shooting budget either. But people got paid, which I think is always right. Not much, but and nobody went or got fed, which nobody suffered too much on the set. And the producers sort of made sure everyone was comfortable. So it wasn't like one of these kind of like it was uncomfortable and cold. No one, it was everyone was treated well, But there was a lot of patching up because the shoot was so quick. We shot it in 18 days. There's a lot of patch up work in post. So there's actually quite surprisingly enough, there's quite a lot of CG work. We had to put a ceiling in, that boring stuff, not like dragons or anything, or like cyborgs. It was just putting a wall in or putting a ceiling in. So there was actually quite a lot of post work to do, and it was in post for a long time. But yeah, it was still very low budget, and but it was when me and Christian put it together, we kind of said, because it had been so long since Freak Out and our monster movie had collapsed, and there'd been other projects which had like fallen apart at the 11th hour. we kind of said to ourselves, if we can't get a zombie film made in a toilet made, we've got no right making movies. We should just give up. So, you know, and luckily it did happen, because we were saying, if we can't make a film set in a toilet, then, you know.
And you filmed it at Pinewood?
No, we filmed everything that isn't this is a bit of a spoiler. There's some stuff outside of the toilet. Everything that's outside of the ladies' room is at Pinewood. And it wasn't a set. We actually literally used physical, you know, areas. So there's like a corridor or whatever. That's actually just offices in Pinewood. But everything that's in the bathroom was in a barn in Wimborne in Dorset. We built it in a barn, yeah. Which was a bit annoying, because when we did the sort of, you know, the sound man came and checked it all out. It was fine. He said, yeah, gave it a thumbs up. And then when we went there to film, it was like November, December, just before Christmas. And there's a turkey farm next door. So every time Christian shouted action, you hear go, 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 go. And so basically our sound man was one of the few sound men that had, like, you know, whose main job was to remove turkey noise from the from the soundtrack. But yeah, so we had loads of problems with that, with turkey noise in the background. But yeah, so we basically, the whole toilet set was built in this little barn near this mansion in Wimborne. Yeah.
And to get your zombies, I mean, what the thing is now, you crowdfund a movie by saying, do you want to play a zombie in a movie?
Yeah.
Did you crowdfund at all? Is it just producers?
No, we didn't do that. We went through the kind of traditional, you know, traditional kind of way of sort of fundraising. But with zombies, we did have a bit of trouble with zombies, funny enough. I mean, I think people kind of got a little bit fatigued with all the kind of the flash mob stuff and all that, and like seeing ads come to the thing. Sometimes you get these people get tricked to going to these things and it's not a film, and so we do adverts and only have drips and drabs of people would turn up. So a lot of the majority of the zombies are either friends or actually crew, you know. I'm a zombie in a couple of scenes. When they do reverse shots and I'm not in it, I just put on a hat and put some makeup on, you know. Christian's the director's a zombie, the soundman's a zombie. Yeah. There's some. So yeah, we were very. We did have to sort of storyboard it quite tightly to make sure that it always looked as if we had, you know, an infestation and not just, you know, like 5 sad sacks, pancake makeup on.
And why zombie? Was it literally just thinking, okay, I'm gonna do a low budget movie now, and I'm gonna set it in a toilet?
No, we were reluctant at first for it to be zombies, but like it was actually an idea I had years and years ago before I started screenwriting. It was actually just an idea I had, not even as an idea for something to be made, just a scary notion. When I saw Day of the Dead, you know, at the end when there's the big kind of push, and one of the troops kind of gets cornered and shoots himself. You know, that really freaked me out. I thought there must be something you could have hidden in a cupboard or something, you know. And then that freaked me out, thinking, oh my God, if you're hidden in the cupboard, and like you'd be surrounded by zombies forever. So I always had this idea of like, if you hid in this one small area, the zombies around you, you'd be trapped. And it was just a scary thought. And it's one of the first times, probably outside of Jaws, where my own idea scared me from seeing a movie, you know. And so I had this idea forever. And then back when when I started making films, this idea just kind of bubbled back up into my head one day. Oh God, yes, you know, and I thought, oh, it might be a good idea, a good sort of neat little concept for one of these kind of buried, you know, Adam Green's Frozen, one of those type movies. And it's like, but it's zombies, shit, because I didn't want to do a zombie film, you know, especially after Edgar did Shaun of the Dead, you know. But then I thought to myself, well, if there's characters in there, and it's not just poo and wee jokes, and it's not the toilet stuff, and if there's actually some character development and there's a bit of heart to it, then, you know, there's more to it than just being zombies. And the zombies are almost an aside. They're almost they're almost a second thought. Then that to me became interesting. So when I started writing the script, my sort of sensibilities towards zombies were they're almost just an annoyance. So there's no conversation where they say, where are these things? Where do they come from? It must be a satellite or a spill, you know, toxic barrel or something. He just says, "There's zombies in your toilet," you know, and that's it. Boom, done. You know, let's get over it. You know, we all know what they are. And I gave the script to Christian, and normally we work on script. I write, but he normally throws in ideas. But this was just, I was actually, the guys here, Pete Stanley Ward, who I was in his film Small Town Folk, which is that film there?
Yeah. Yep.
I was in that film with Warwick Davis that Pete Stanley Ward directed, and I kind of formed the script with Pete, and he said, you know, Christian would be great for this, and it's funny because it's the first time I hadn't formed a script with Christian, but it's just I'd written a Christian James script, you know. So Pete was sort of the co-producer, and we gave it to Christian, and he loved it. But once again, I was like, zombies. So we did for half a second think vampires, you know, aliens, but there's nothing more kind of like lethargic than a zombie, you know. And the idea of like them slowly, the idea of a zombie, it's not the singular, it's the mass, you know. And obviously that's why there's obviously sort of virus allegories with zombies, and so we just got over ourselves. But fuck it, let's just do it. You know, and the nicest reviews we've had and the nicest feedback we've had is from people that are surprised by the film. You know, it's not just a zombie film, and also the toilet aspect. People are expecting there to be like, funny enough, what's a toilet humor, but people seem to be pleasantly surprised that there's actual minimal toilet humor in a toilet-based film. Yeah.
Well, I'm just inviting Steve. Steve just sent the invitation. Steve Zarebski will be joining us from Canada.
Oh.
What I found very noticeable is the lack of dialogue. Who was that? Just very conscious, or was that just the way it felt? Or
it was funny. Looking back at it now, I kind of wondered if we could have got away with it being a Buster Keaton, Howard Lloyd type zombie movie, which I think someone could go and do very well with. And because the first 20 minutes, give or take, there's hardly any dialogue. You know, it's just extras. You know, in the on the peripheral. Yeah, I mean, I like the setup. I like the idea of there being this kind of slow crawl, and just like you kind of get more of an insight into in a funny way, you get more of an insight into the character in sort of internal workings, right? Him actually projecting, you know. So you watch him like meditate, you watch him observe, and then you're kind of drawn into it. So when they start chatting, you're a little bit more involved with the characters. And plus, there's just some nice slapsticks, like say some nice sort of Buster Keaton-esque stuff. Yeah, I mean, but on the flip side, funny enough, I do like writing dialogue, and I do like dialogue-heavy movies. You know, I kind of like Kevin Smith stuff, and David Mamet or Hal Hartley and people like that. You know, so it is this kind of strange hodgepodge of like silent movie aesthetics and also kind of dialogue-based drama. Because when the two characters find each other in the stalls, you know, there is a lot of heavy dialogue, and then boom, back into the kind of the more sort of visual aspects, you know.
Okay, cool, interesting. Steve's half joined us. Steve, I can't see your picture, but if you'd like to try unmuting yourself, I'm thinking you're having a bit of... Hi, Steve.
Hi.
We can hear you, we can't see you. Do you have a question for Dan?
I'm just going to try reconnecting real quick.
Okay. All right. Well, whilst you're doing that, we've got a question in from Kim, who would just like to say, Dan, what do you think of the ABCs of Death films? Would you be interested in doing something like that, a small...
I actually filmed one. Didn't get accepted. So thanks a lot to bring back the pain. I'm going to talk about when my cat died as well.
I acted in one that didn't get accepted, so yeah.
Letter T. What letter was it?
M.
Okay. I did
Metamorphosis. I think it's the last one.
Okay, a director friend of mine, James Eves, who did the film Bane and Witch's Hammer. We did one, and it was T for toilet paper. And I know this was before Stalled, and he's since recut it as a short film. I think you do these anthology films where they just are lazy and they just like get 6 directors to, not like not like Trick or Treat or whatever, but they just get set up at 6. We've probably got friends that have done them, so I should be careful. But they just randomly pick 6 to go and make a short film, and slap it together and do it.
Yeah.
I think
I'm not fond of those.
I think it might be ending up in one of those. But it was the thing was, I was a toilet paper salesman, and I didn't care about the environment, and I was making 26 ply toilet paper to make it really soft, but I didn't care about how much paper it wasted. And then I end up falling out of a window and get hung by my own toilet paper. And as an irony, my character was also heavily constipated, so when I get hung, I evaporate my bowels over the company. Check it out, kids.
I think, did Lee Hardcastle?
Yeah, he did
his claymation one.
No, yeah, he went and did Tea for Toilet, and basically, it was amazing, and deservedly got.
Yeah.
But yeah, I haven't really, not for any reason, but I haven't seen any of the ABC movies, so I can't really comment on them. But I'm not really a massive fan of anthology movies. They're very hit and miss. I like Creepshow and the Twilight Zone movie, and there's a few good ones out there. But
it's the black and I've probably spoken on about this before. Dead of Night, the
yeah,
black and white one.
Like Cat's Eye gets forgotten about as well.
Oh yes, yeah.
The little gnome at the end, and there's a kind of little Greek's chorus, every breath you take, that's great,
Okay, so Stalled is on at the end of next week, but it's still available at iTunes, etc. But you've also been doing some acting recently. Banjo, the
you can call it that, yeah.
And Steve's just Steve, hello.
Hi.
Hey, Steve.
Hi.
Do you have a question for Dan?
Is there any other zombie movies you have coming out?
No, any more zombie movies?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Of mine? No, we were gonna do a Stall 2, but that ship's kind of sailed now. We were because Christian and I don't own the rights, and actually Pete and the guys here at Treehouse Digital, they were gonna take it on and make Stall 2. We're going to shoot it here because there's really good shooting spaces here and stuff. But we don't own the rights. It's not that simple. But we contacted the one of the producers who owns the rights, and he said, "Yeah, great. I'll call you back." And that was 6 months ago. So we basically put a line through a Stalled sequel. So no more zombies, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm gonna check out Stalled tonight or this week sometime.
Cheers, buddy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you. All right, I'm just going to mute you for a moment, Steve. But just wave at me if something else comes up before the end of the show, which is coming up fairly shortly. So what I was going to mention, we talked about. I just mentioned Banjo, The Package, Egomaniac. You've been doing just acting.
Yeah.
Recently.
Yeah, the Banjo was Liam Regan. He saw Stalled at Fright Fest, because we had 2 screenings at Fright Fest, and then they sold out really quickly, and we were like, what? So they put on a 3rd one, that sold out, and then they put on a 4th one. It's like, so we had 4 screenings at Fright Fest, which was nuts. It was actually just Christian and I thought we were going to be like the Carrie of Fright Fest. We thought maybe once a year they pick a film to bully, to pick on, and they know shit. We're going to get pig's blood on anyway. But no, it wasn't that. It was a great experience, and Liam was there, and he saw Stalled, and so he cast me in Banjo, which is his kind of sort of little trauma type thing. I'm not a big fan of. I saw Lawrence's episode of you, and I saw him say the same thing. Because Lawrence is in Banjo as well. I'm not a big fan of Trauma. Like I can take him or leave him, but Liam's a massive Trauma fan. But you can see his love for the project. So originally, because he did a short film, he wanted me to play the main guy, but I was installed post-production, so I didn't take it on. So there's a kind of like what if for you. But I just came in and played a bully for a few days. But I had really bad food poisoning, so I can't remember what I was doing. It was nuts. And then The Package, which was a short film I did with a director called Damon Riccardi. He's a really good guy, and Damon basically shot this sort of like weird kind of torture chamber piece kind of thing
Damon's been on the show talking about it.
Okay, yeah. And over 2 days in this kind of weird kind of World War II ammunition place in Portsmouth, and I was tied to a chair for the whole thing, so not being mobile was absolutely freezing. But it was a great experience, and Tom Gordon, who is my co-star in it, he was really great to work with, and it's really great because Damon, I'm friends with Damon, but I don't see him a lot, and it's a kind of a part that other friends I work with probably wouldn't give me because my trousers aren't falling down, and it's it was more of a serious role, and it was kind of nice of Damon to think that I could sort of pull it off, and it was something it's a bit of sort of it wasn't typecasting, it was kind of anti-casting, if that makes sense.
Casting against type.
Yeah, there we go. That's a non-retarded way of saying it. And it was really rewarding. Sometimes, you do these short films, you think, why the fuck am I doing this? But that was a really great experience, and he came up with a really good little film, and it's won a few awards and stuff. And it's about time he made a feature film. He should stop messing around with these 5-minute films.
Hanging around, Damon. Yeah.
Maniac, I'm not talking about that. My lawyer said I'm not allowed to talk about that. Because Kate Shenton didn't mention me once on her episode on this, so
Wonderful Kate Shenton. Yeah. I'm looking forward to this.
The shy, retiring Kate Shenton.
Yeah, very shy, retiring Kate. You haven't seen her for a while. I need to hook up with Kate.
Yeah. That's really a cameo. I mean, I basically shot my stuff in 50 minutes.
Right.
It was nuts, and she basically said, "You're doing this part." And, okay. And I basically got the train to this record store. It's a record store that's in that street on that on the album cover, that Oasis album cover.
Right.
Anyway, I basically turned up this one. Wear this, wear that. Stand behind the counter. Do these lines. I met Nicola Carter, the lead. She's fantastic. Did the stuff, and then bam. Thank you. I was like, my head was spinning. I was like. I felt like Jennifer Jason Leigh in Last Exit to Brooklyn. I was just being handed around it's a great film though. This sounds terrible, but I was really surprised. It really is funny. It's not really a horror film. It's really it's a dark comedy. But she's made a great little film. Considering it's for $5,000. Am I allowed to say that?
Too late now.
Yeah, I've got trouble. She's probably selling it, telling I checked.
I'll bleep it out. If she tells me to, I'll bleep it out. It's okay. I'll go back in and out.
She's done a great job. It's a great little film. I'm in it for 10 seconds, but it's the best 10 seconds of the film.
It's the best 10 seconds of the movie, obviously. Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay, so last question from Kim. Have you heard of a movie called Hush on Netflix?
I have. I haven't seen it. Yeah, isn't it about a deaf woman, isn't it, being stalked?
Yeah, I haven't seen it. I've seen it on. I've seen it advertised. I haven't had a chance to actually watch it. But the question that Kim asks is, do you think this is the way to go for independent filmmakers? With this I'm assuming because from what I've seen of the trailer, it's like two characters, one location.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Maybe I'm lucky in the regards that I write stuff like that anyway. I don't go off and write these big space operas, or like massive sprawling films. I grew up kind of like on sort of 90s indie stuff, the 90s indie boom, Todd Solondz and Hal Hartley and Kevin Smith and Alison Anders and Tarantino, and it's kind of quite dialogue based, quite static, quite insulated. So luckily for me, I write that kind of stuff anyway. So Stalled wasn't really I wasn't writing with my business hat on. I was just writing a story I wanted to tell. But there's no hiding the fact that it's much easier to shoot a movie that's set in one or two locations rather than one that's sort of like global. If you go and write your first script and it's sort of like says India like 1802, that ain't gonna get made.
Unless you got Judi Dench in it, and it's exotic Marigold Hotel. Yeah.
Very lucky if you got Judi Dench for your first film, but So I mean, I would argue that just try and tell the story you want to tell, but on the other hand, if you've got meager budget, it's easier realised when you've got, you know, I must admit, I do find sometimes I'm writing a script, I will kind of try and rein it in a little bit. I think, oh, hold on, no, let's not have, you know, the football stadium. let's make it a newsagent, you know. So my football movie's fucked. But yeah, I mean, and you see these films now cropping up more and more. But yeah, you do wonder where you're going to end up. Like, you know, with stalled. If we're doing more and more stalled movies, would it be like a vampire film in a car boot? You know, werewolf film in a matchbox? You know, you wonder how small you can get. But yeah, there is something to be said for sort of, making your first film with what you've got at hand and not getting too silly with the scope of the thing.
Yeah. No, I think very sage advice. Dan, this has been absolutely fascinating. We are at the end of our time already, so quickly.
Don't you do Chattering After Dark?
I've got to go and have my dinner yet, and I need to. I've got to eat. I've got to get ready for all the builders coming in tomorrow.
That's not you missing.
That sounds terrible. Yeah.
I'm going to get back to my book.
You get back to your book. Before I actually sign off, I will just say that next week I'm going to be joined by Laurie Brewster and Sarah Daly, who are behind the Lord of Tears, and The Unkindness of Ravens is their next movie coming up. Really looking forward to talking to them, because they've got quite an amazing CV between the two of them. And also, just a reminder, if you're watching the show, you enjoyed it, please subscribe on YouTube. I'm very grateful whenever anybody does. And check out the Chattering with Nicholas Vince group on Facebook. You're a member now. I think you're a member. I'll double check and make sure I've added you in, Dan, so you can, please share what else you've got coming up. Dan, thank you so much for joining me this week.
Thank you, sir.
That's right.
Thank you, Dan.
And cheers, Steve. Thank you very much indeed for coming and joining us. The last plug is that Dan's film Stalled will be on the Horror Channel in the UK on Friday at 10 to 11. That's Friday the 10th of June. There's also a couple of other screenings as well. But I'm just going to say this has been Chattering with Nicholas Vince. I've been chattering with Dan Palmer. I'm joined by Steve Zarebski. Thank you very much indeed for watching, and good night, and I will see you next week. Good night, folks.
See ya.
Bye.